So the tricky thing here is now being like, well, pretty much anything is a spoiler.
There is going to be spoilers.
I think so.
There's
spoiler warning. Put it in the title of the episode. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Cricket Table Podcast. This is Rob.
And this is Kai.
And this is part 2 of our Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens doubleheader, I guess is what we're going to go with. We have now already seen the movie. We're recording this Sunday following the film's release. So we've had a couple of days to kind of marinate over the intense goings-on of the film. Sort of, I think we talked about the movie immediately after when we got home from the theater for like at least an hour or stuff, just going back and forth, being like, but what about this thing that happened? Or what about this character? I don't know how I feel about this. And sort of our general reactions, right?
Yes, I remember that.
Wow, thanks. Way to contribute. So, since we already have an episode filled with our hopes and our dreams, or maybe just mine and Kai reacting to it, you can listen to part 1 of this episode. Going forward, we will have spoilers. We will discuss the film in depth, the fates of many of the characters, where it leaves us for episode 8, which is due for release in 2017. And so if you want to walk into the theater unsullied and you're one of like the 5 people that didn't contribute to the $500 million worldwide opening weekend that the film had, please wait until after this. Wait until after you've seen the film to listen to this. Otherwise, you've been warned. So, the movie starts, and we meet Kylo. We meet Kylo Ren pretty much right away, like opening scene, which was very much a parallel to Darth Vader's introduction in almost the first scene of Episode 4. And there's a lot of similarities and parallels that we'll get into going forward.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Oh, I mean, how can you not mention that? A lot of people that have been writing about this movie have noted how it is essentially part sequel, part reboot, part remake in some degree.
But is that them paying homage, or is that lazy screenwriting?
A little balance between the two. I mean, it's also paying tribute to the earlier films, and if they're trying to reintroduce this after 32 years since the last film that hardcore fans all pretty much universally embrace. I mean, it makes sense that part of that process would involve going back to a lot of the elements of that original trilogy, and sort of reintroducing them, reinterpreting them for this next generation of characters. So I guess we should probably, before we start getting into deep into the film, what was kind of your general impression to the movie, and did it meet your expectations? Granted, you weren't as hyped about this as I was, but did it meet your expectations? Were you bored, or were you how did it compare to the other films in the series? And what was your general rating on a scale of 5? We normally
There's a lot of questions. My initial viewpoint on the movie was it actually was pretty good, and we saw it we actually saw it in an IMAX dome, and there was a lot of cheering for things, for characters that showed up, for scenes that happened. So that was fun. It's always a fun experience to see movies and to have the audience react. So I like that. And so it was a good film. Rob always asks me after every movie, says, how many stars? So I'll give this one 4 out of 5. I usually don't go any higher than a 4. Or a
3.5.
Or 3.5. Yeah, I'm not really. I don't give 4.5s or 5s to very many things. So it's a 4, and I think I liked Rey a lot. She was a very strong character, and as a female, it was nice to see a female lead, like a female heroine, especially in a Star Wars movie where there aren't really that many of them. And there's Padme, but
Padme and Leia, and that's about it.
Yeah, Padme got kind of weaker as her storyline went on, and Princess Leia was a little bit more she's sometimes too aggressive. I don't think she really had a fine balance of femininity with assertiveness. It was just a lot of times just aggressive. But I think Rey was a nice combination of both of them. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I said soon after we saw the movie, if Rey ends up being a Skywalker descendant, which I mean, I think everybody is sort of theorizing that she's going to end up being either Luke's like niece or Luke's daughter or some kind of connection blood-wise to the rest of the original trilogy cast. She does have a nice balance of Padme's compassion and Leia's strength. Granted, Padme and Leia were both had those attributes, but I felt like Padme was more like the softer, like maternal type, and like you were saying, Leia was always more assertive, more like I can handle this myself, grabbing the gun from Han Solo and shooting the stormtroopers herself in the Episode 4 and that kind of thing.
But maybe in the 70s, that's how women take charge. Women were viewed in society, and I think that having a film like Star Wars and and some other films.
Well, this was we were talking about that earlier today. This was a really good year for strong female leads between Mad Max Fury Road and The Hunger Games and I mentioned Sicario and Cinderella even was like sort of that same kind of thing, but like portraying her really as a strong female figure.
Yeah, so it's really good to see such strong females that are really being characterized the way that I feel like women are. I mean, we're very complicated. I mean, we're assertive, or we're vulnerable, we're compassionate, and we're nurturing, yet we're strong and resilient, and we're a lot more than just, one-dimensional characters.
And even Leia, for most of that first movie, was waiting to be rescued on the Death Star. Sort of damsel in distress until almost at least midway through, where Luke comes in and is like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you. I have your droid, I'm with Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi, where is he? And then she's like, sort of becomes a little more take charge. But yeah, so I would probably give this a 4.5. I would love to give it a perfect score, but I mean, it does rely a lot on previous films, so I have to sort of knock it a little bit because of that. There were several moments in the theater where I was like, my heart was like beating really hard, and I was really breathless, and that big moment, Rey's big heroic moment towards the end, again, spoilers, when she catches the lightsaber after Kylo Ren and Finn are facing off, and Finn is basically out of commission 2 seconds later, and the lightsaber shoots over to Rey, who uses the Force to grab it. That was one of those like holy shit moments, like evoking the same kind of nostalgic spirit of the originals and excitement as something like the big T-Rex reveal in the end of Jurassic World, only even more so. And
people reacted. That was one of the audience reactions.
And that was one of the few reactions that had nothing to do with, hey, the Millennium Falcon, or look, it's Han Solo, or there's Luke Skywalker. It was more like, holy shit, we're witnessing the next huge iconic character in this franchise sort of taking charge of her destiny.
When you think about it, yeah, it is really exciting that there's a Star Wars movie outside of the three original films. I mean, that's pretty exciting because I guess everybody wanted to know. I know everybody wants
taking place afterwards.
Yeah, taking place afterwards. Yeah. This is the first time in history that we're seeing a Star Wars movie after what happened for almost 40 years ago now.
Yeah, and this is the last time we're gonna have a decade or more of hype in between films, probably for a long, long, long time. Because, I mean, it's been a decade since Revenge of the Sith, and that was supposed to be the last movie. It was George Lucas's eyes, that was sort of like the end of the Vader story, which has kind of been the running theme throughout. And now we're going to be getting a film every year, alternating between, official episodes and then the standalone movies. So, I mean, yeah, people have been waiting 30-something years to see, okay, what happened to Luke? What happened to Han? What happened to Leia? And the movie, one of the things I would sort of knock again a little bit is that ending is like, the ending is so powerful and exciting, but I'm like, oh man, I would have liked a little more Mark Hamill. Just, he didn't even say anything. Just like a sentence, a phrase, a word, something. That drove me a little crazy. I was like, oh man, I want to watch episode 8 right now, and I have to wait 2 years.
Well, it's better than waiting 10.
Right, that's true. And, back in the day, I mean, we all grew up with all the other movies were, I mean, not the prequels, but the original trilogy with these characters was all on video or DVD, and you can basically just pick it up, be like, all right, next one. It's been a while for a Star Wars film of this quality to come out, and then for us to then be like, be forced to wait years until the next story. I mean, I went through some of that with the prequels, but I mean, come on, this is a better movie than all three of those, like, easily, in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I watched all of them consecutively, recently. So, yeah, this movie was pretty good. It wasn't, weren't as many plot holes, there weren't so many, oh my gosh, did they just say that? Moments, and... Nobody
talked about sand.
Yeah. There was a lot of sand, though.
There was a sand planet.
Yeah, but there was a love story, so we'll hopefully see how that goes.
Are you talking about Finn and Rey?
Yes.
There was inklings of an attraction. More on his end, which I thought was cool. It wasn't her being like, I'm in love, I have feelings for you, Finn. It's more him being like, so, you got a boyfriend? You got a cute boyfriend? You know, what's going on? What's the deal with that? And, oh my god. He was great. Okay, I guess we should, let's focus in. Oh, we kind of did our general impression, so let's focus in now on the cast. The new cast, the old cast, and then we can get into story details from there. So, I did see John Boyega in Attack the Block. I was telling you this earlier today. And I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention to it. I'm pretty sure I was doing something else, and it was streaming on Netflix, or it was late at night, so I wasn't really... I actually now have it again to try and give it another shot now that I've seen him in this. But he was really charismatic as hell in this, and very funny. He had a lot of the comic relief, sort of the everyman of the story in a way, which is weird because he's a stormtrooper, but he's not, because there was that line where he literally said, "I was about to do it was in my first battle, and I couldn't kill for them. I just couldn't do it," and that kind of thing. And I thought that was something fresh that we hadn't seen in these movies before, in a perspective that, we've had people go from Jedi to Sith Lord and back, but we have never had someone, like one of the like henchmen for the Empire, or in this case the First Order, being like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right. This is not where I belong. And feeling responding to a calling elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good thing, because I like it when I see characters do the right thing and show integrity in their actions, and definitely Finn had a lot of integrity with that, and was an interesting character because, he wasn't being completely honest with Rey, because he liked her and was worried that if she found out he was a stormtrooper in the past, then she wouldn't like him anymore. But he had to step up, be a man, and say, hey, I'm not who you think I am. And I think that was a lot of Han's influence. He's like,
well, women are going to find out the truth, always. There's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And
I like how the trailers and the poster are painting him as like our new hero. And then, of course, it ends up being revealed that he's not the center of this new story. He seems like he's more of the... I don't know, more the Han Solo or the Leia out of the story than the Luke. Because Rey is clearly the Luke Skywalker. She's the chosen one. She's the one that felt the Force calling to her. I mean, the title refers to the Force Awakening.
But she's also on the poster.
Yeah, but she is. But
the one we saw in IMAX was just her and BB-8.
Oh yeah. I'm referring more to all the trailer footage and the poster where Finn is holding the lightsaber, and they hyped up this lightsaber fight between him and Kylo Ren. That didn't really happen. That wasn't very much for Finn to do there. He was not the one that was really holding his own. So I thought that was all really smart misdirection on the part of the movie. And they had amazing chemistry together. BB-8 and BB-8 was great, and just as much.
BB-8 is cuter than R2-D2, I think.
Yeah, because he's more expressive.
Yes, and we did find out that IMDb did write that BB-8 was the original model for R2-D2, but at the time they didn't have the capability to do that. So then R2-D2 has now been reborn into BB-8. So
yeah, the concept art or whatever, like the digital design,
not the character.
No, yeah.
Don't worry,
R2-D2, he's in there, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But BB-8 was just as much of a highlight as the promotion for this movie would have entailed or implied, because they were going all over the place at Comic-Cons and stuff, showing off the little robot rolling around, because that was a practical effect. That was not there was I don't think hardly any point where BB-8 was CG. That was a real robot, real thing that they created with a remote control.
Wow, that's cool. It was pretty cute trying to go down the stairs.
Yeah, going one at a time and very expressive as far as the fact that his little headpiece could wiggle around, and like I was telling you, he can there was a moment where Ray's like, oh, or Finn is like, tell her where the base is, and he's like looking between Finn and Ray trying to decide what he should do, or later, and then after when he said he told her where it was, Finn gives him the little thumbs up, and BB-8 does the little flame thumbs up thing. That was super cute. He was very endearing, and pretty much right from the beginning of the movie, I was already involved. I was already invested in Finn, BB-8, Ray, Poe Dameron, who Oscar Isaac has been doing stellar work for years, and it's nice to see him in a film of this this size and scope. Of course, we're going to see that again in like 5 months when X-Men comes out. And
in case you all don't know, Oscar Isaac was also in that movie that not that many people saw, but it was Sucker Punch.
Yeah, the Zack Snyder movie.
I think that was the first movie we saw him in.
That was the first movie we saw him in. He was really great in that too.
That was only 4 years ago. Look at all the things he's been doing.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. So, and I'm sure that he wanted to be in this movie. I mean, I'm sure that...
Well, I read earlier today that was supposed to be a small role. So early in the film, when Poe Dameron is presumed dead, like I guess the character was really supposed to die there. And then it was really just supposed to take over Finn and Rey's story from that point. But of course, he ends up coming back later on and being more instrumental in the resistance side of things. And hopefully being back, hopefully he'll be one of the major players going forward with episode 8 and 9.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, we didn't get very much of him, but I think this is more like, hey, there's this guy, he's really cool, and he has some great funny lines when the interrogation scene with Kylo Ren. He's like, so who talks? Do I talk? Do you talk? How does this work?
There were a lot of funny lines in general.
Yeah, it was a very humorous film, which I'd heard about like the day or so beforehand, just like from some like reactions that I'd read without really getting deep into it, because I avoided pretty much all the reviews. I mean, I heard that it was positive buzz going into it, but I didn't really read anything because I was trying to remain as unsullied as possible. So I think it was really just to establish that he's in this world, and then they'll do presumably they'll do more with that character in the sequels. But yeah, it's nice to see Oscar Isaac in here, and he did a great job. They all really did. But Daisy Ridley, she was kind of a revelation in this movie, and she essentially stole the whole film. I would venture to say that Rey was an even more compelling character in this film than Luke Skywalker was in the original trilogy. I don't know what it is about her. She's just got more of a presence and more of a vulnerability about her, like a world weariness. Whereas Luke and Anakin were both kind of whiny and like spoiled kids who were then exposed to how complex the world really was. Rey sort of already knew about that. She was a scavenger and like hunting down for parts so she could like get some of this gross globby stuff to eat.
Was that supposed to be bread?
I think it was supposed to. I think it was because it looked like the packages, the quarter portion, whatever. It looked like that was vacuum sealed. So it looked like she was putting it in a pan and then like adding some water, and it was like dehydrated food or so. Which was very much of a kind of an astronaut type of type of technology, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because it looks like it's a post. See, that's the thing with Star Wars. Some of these worlds look like they're post-apocalyptic. Yet it's still it's still in a different
films and that kind of thing, and they'll establish him as a younger version elsewhere, and then they'll sort of explain what he's doing here early on.
But if you don't read the comic books and you don't know anything about that, then how are you supposed to know about it for the movie?
You don't have to. He's just a guy.
He was an important enough guy that Poe Dameron came back to that planet.
Well, to get the map to Luke Skywalker.
Well, how come that guy had the map to Luke Skywalker? He must be important.
I guess, but I mean, it's all the movies sort of...
He even said about Princess Leia, or General Leia now, says, she's royalty to me.
Yeah.
And so clearly he already had a very close relationship with her.
Well, she was a princess at one point, and her mom was queen before that, so I wonder how much of that he actually knows.
See, that's funny that Leia got to grow up under royalty, and Luke had to grow up under, like, Tatooine.
Right, pretty much.
But at least they were left with family.
Yeah, he wasn't a slave like his dad was, at least.
Yes, that's true.
It's interesting how it's a multi-generational story, right?
Yes. But I think that Rey is Luke's daughter. Because my reasoning for thinking this is that when Leia and Han see Rey, well, first Han sees her first. There wasn't much recognition, much attachment to her. I mean, if that's his daughter, you'd think that he would care about her too, not just about Kylo Ren, the son that he lost. It just didn't seem like he's just
But he did. I mean, he tried to like offer her a job under the guy, which seemed like he was more like you're a good person. I want to have you around, make sure you're safe, and that kind of thing. I don't know.
Right, but wonder why that he couldn't. I mean, he didn't.
Well, Leia straight up hugs her at the end.
But that could be a sign that's her aunt.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. There's definitely some kind of connection there, but it would also really convolute the story if that's their daughter. It's like, well, how did that happen? Was she left somewhere?
Right.
I mean, but if it was Luke and Luke was like ashamed of what he inadvertently did to his nephew, it makes sense why you'd be like, yeah, this kid that I have, I'm just gonna fuck up her life too. I'm gonna leave you here and then take off and then maybe come back at some point.
Right.
So that would establish that, and she did have that vision, which looked like it had some flashbacks to when she was a little girl. Right.
Right. And it was all involving Luke, involving Kylo Ren, and like
she has a rebel helmet that looked like the one Luke wore in the original trilogy when he was in the X-wing.
Oh, what? I didn't see that.
She was sliding down.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Down the sand, and she's like sitting there watching the ships take off while she's eating her little bread thing. She has this helmet on, and she's just kind of chilling.
Right.
I even heard that she had a doll that looks sort of like Luke, but I don't remember that. And when I see that, I haven't seen this film a second time yet, obviously, but well, not obviously. Some people see it like 3 or 4 times
right
now. But I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to yet. I will be doing that though. But yeah,
there was just too much closeness, too much attachment to Luke to have her be Han and Leia's child. It right. Just one, because they didn't really seem like they were very attached to her as their daughter, and then 2, yeah, it was too convoluted for the story. I mean, why? Yeah, have one child that you raised that then went bad, and then another child that got abandoned, and then 3, she just seems so connected to Luke with her flashbacks and
well, she's essentially supposed to be
lightsaber.
She's essentially supposed to be the Luke Skywalker of the story. So I mean, it sort of makes sense a little bit she would feel like she has like such a connection to that character already. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I like that they didn't explain everything in this movie though too, because then there wouldn't be as much mystery or anticipation surrounding. I mean, we would be super excited about Episode 8, but now we're like, oh shit, now what does this mean? What is Luke doing? Is he bad? What's he doing with his saber? Is he going to like train her now, or is he going to be like, thanks for the saber, get out of here? I mean, or are they related, or what's, they leave a lot of unanswered questions. Supreme Leader Snoke made a reference to bring Kylo Ren to me, I'm going to complete his training. The fuck does that mean? Complete his training how? Why wasn't his training complete?
Because he seems very Darth Vader-y to me.
My theory is that he's like, there's something I have to do, but I don't know if I can. And when he finally, spoilers, when he finally slays his own father, I think that Supreme Leader Snoke was like, yeah, I want to train you and make you like a legit Sith Lord or whatever title they're going to use and complete your training. But you have to resolve that conflict within yourself. And maybe Kylo Ren, in his mind, that was to kill his father.
Right.
Sort of similar.
So terrible.
Well, yes, but
what a way to go out, Han Solo.
Sort of like you remember in Return of the Jedi, Luke is like, is Vader my father? And then Obi-Wan and Yoda are basically confirmed, like, yeah, your father he is, and that kind of thing. You have to face him, and he's like, I can't do it. I can't kill my own father. And then Obi-Wan's like, then the Emperor's already won. It's like, this is your final. We need you to face Vader, to really, and only then will you be a Jedi. Only then can we bring balance to the Force. So it's sort of like the dark, fucked up, perverted version of that in this movie. Supreme Leader Snoke probably...
They both sound dark and perverted to me.
Well...
How are they different?
But Vader is bad and needs to be stopped. Kylo Ren is doing this to appease his master. And to quiet his tormented soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's still bad. All of it's bad. It's all death and destruction. But I mean...
But why is Jedi... encouraging there to be murder?
Not murder. You have to face Vader and defeat him.
Which is killing.
Yeah, but if it's not in cold blood, you give him a chance to defend himself. It's different. It's like a samurai or like Knights of the Round Table type of mentality. If you defeat them in battle, it's not like you walk up behind them and stab them in the back. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm almost positive that Snoke instructed Kylo Ren to basically do that. And now that he's completed that task, now he can complete his training.
How does Snoke know this?
I don't know. We don't know who the hell. Well, I'm sure the witnesses, or I mean, who knows?
There are only 4 witnesses.
He can sense it. Who
there
the hell knows?
There are only 3 witnesses.
He can sense in the Force. He can sense it in the Force. Okay,
I guess. Okay.
Ultimately it's a fantasy, and they can explain anything away if they really want to. But yeah, he could probably sense it or something. But we don't even know who Snoke is. Remember we talked about last podcast about, is that Darth Plagueis, or is that something else, or how does he fit with anything? We didn't really get any of those answers here. However, I was right about Kylo Ren being Han's kid.
Yes, kid. You are.
We don't know about Rey yet either, but we'll get there. I feel like it's going to get to that point where people are going to be disappointed if she's not connected to them somehow by blood. You know?
Well, it's like you said in the last podcast. The Kathleen Kennedy wants to continue the story of the Skywalker family. Mm-hmm. Well, if Rey's going to be, she's the main star of this franchise now, then I would assume she's a Skywalker.
Yeah.
Or else why do we care about her? I don't care about her if she's a Skywalker. If she's not one.
I still care about her. She's kind of awesome. She was probably the best character in the movie, which, is encouraging because the lead character of the last trilogy was bitching about sand the whole time.
And then his son bitched about things being unfair. Yeah.
His son is like, I want to go up to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. That kind of thing. No, but Rey was instantly magnetic, and I'm hoping that Daisy Ridley can transform this, can kind of use this movie as a launch pad to like a really strong and prosperous career, because I think she can. I think she can do it. I think everybody's gonna walk out and be like, "Who the hell was that girl?" And this is really her first like real major movie. I mean, she's only been in I think maybe one other film feature on IMDb, and it was something that didn't have very many ratings, so I'm assuming it's super indie. Or something like that, and so I mean that was very exciting. We haven't. Maybe
she was a movie she did in her theater class because she actually went to a theater school in England.
Were you reading up on the trivia?
I always read up on the trivia, but I didn't finish it because it's too long already. It's too long already.
Well, it's Star Wars. I mean, there's a lot of this has been reported as this movie's been going through production and all.
Right, I know, but the other ones are really long too. Right. And this one just came out, so I can only imagine the more trivia they're going to add to it.
We didn't talk about Kylo Ren though, of the main new character. So how did you feel about him as a villain, as a a complex main figure in this new trilogy, and sort of I guess comparing to Vader, which is clearly his inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did. A decent job. I mean, he was definitely intimidating, and his. He was stronger with the Force than Darth Vader was. I mean, Darth Vader was doing like a chokehold type thing.
Darth Vader was also more of he was also, well, first he was older. Secondly, if the Force relies on midichlorians, which I know, whatever, but we'll ignore that. It's in your bloodstream. At this point, Vader was like an armless, legless, like stump of a man, basically. True. He was all machine, so he lost a lot of his abilities to use the Force. I mean, Anakin in Revenge of the Sith was much stronger before he got cut down and burnt to death, basically, almost. So that's a lot of that. And Kylo Ren's not even fully trained. Can you imagine? He's going to be more powerful than Anakin was in Episode 3 if this is any indication.
Yes. I mean, I didn't like the fact when he took off his mask.
He's just like, it's the guy that works at Starbucks down the street.
Right. I didn't want him to take off his mask, but I understood the scenes to why he did that.
Right.
The scene with when we first see him do that with Rey, and then when we see him do that with his dad. I mean, I get that. It's more showing vulnerability, like showing I'm not afraid. I don't need a mask to be
his mask is
bad.
His mask is pretty badass, and his lightsaber is pretty badass.
Yes.
And he had a lot of amazing moments. Like in the beginning, I think Poe Dameron shoots a blaster at him, and the blaster bolt stops midair. He stops it with the Force, and you see it sitting there, And then he gets Poe Dameron and he kills a bunch of people, whatever, makes some orders, and then walks away, and then you see the blaster bolt finish flying across the screen. Holy crap, that was some cool stuff.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, the very beginning, where he takes Poe and tortures him.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I don't remember that scene with the blaster. Just, obviously I remember when he was being tortured.
Right.
But kind of to talk a little bit about a plot hole related to the Kylo Ren story is that,
Okay.
well, Rey really, but I think it was a plot hole that Rey was so good with her Jedi powers because Luke had to train for months to even have the ability to move things with his mind and to do the Jedi mind trick and to even use a lightsaber. And she just got it.
Yeah, Luke didn't even do a Jedi mind trick until Return of the Jedi.
Oh.
Which was after 2 movies of learning stuff from Obi-Wan and then Yoda. I'm backing you up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a really cool moment, and it's great that she's, showing
and that Stormtrooper were voiced by Daniel Craig in a cameo there.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until I'm gonna have to when I rewatch the movie. I'm gonna have to pay attention and be like, hey, is that James Bond? Because I didn't even notice it this time.
And there are 3 British people in this movie.
Yeah, John Boyega. Did you count him?
Yep.
Daisy
Ridley and Daniel Craig.
Oh, and Domhnall Gleeson.
Oh,
and
yeah, him too.
Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma, who, by the way, was...
Lupita Nyong'o's from Africa, so...
Yeah, I think so. And, Gwendolyn Christie, Captain Phasma was kind of a waste of a character. I mean, I guess we're going to see more of her in the sequel, but I'm not interested.
What happened to her? I thought she died or something. They killed her.
I don't know what they did. I don't care. I don't really care about her. I was sort of uninterested in
like her costume, though. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, the chrome stormtrooper style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just think there was a plot hole with that. Rey was a little too good.
Well, we also don't know her background. We don't know where she came from.
And why is she a pilot?
If she is I don't know. She flies things around on that planet. Who knows? If she is a Skywalker, that would explain a little bit of that natural inclination towards the Force. Leia doesn't. Leia never studied the Force. She could feel things in it and stuff.
True.
She could sense in Empire Strikes Back. She's like, I know where Luke is. Remember?
Yeah.
When he's dangling there with his one hand, he's like, Leia. She's like, I'm Luke. She can hear him.
True.
She didn't train shit. She didn't even know. They didn't even know.
But did she also know that because that's her brother?
She didn't know that was her brother at the time, though.
Oh, true. Okay.
So, plus in the flashback with Rey, we see her as a little girl. We don't know if Luke is her dad. We don't know if she was learning some of the Jedi stuff beforehand. And, he started to teach her things or talk to her about it.
And maybe that's why she remembered the whole Jedi mind trick then.
She could have repressed some of these memories. We don't know. She doesn't seem like she knows a whole lot about what happened before her family left.
Yeah,
so,
she's
again,
been waiting.
That's why we have 2 more sequels. So we'll hear a lot more about that, I'm sure. So Kylo Ren, I think it was interesting that when he took off the helmet, or I guess it's more of a mask than a helmet. When he took off the mask, he didn't have any, he wasn't scarred or anything, any kind of disfigurement going on. Whereas, Vader's whole thing was he was burned alive or whatever and all that stuff.
He couldn't even breathe.
Right. So he was dependent on the mechanical suit to keep him alive. Kylo Ren's, all his scars and all his, complexities seem to be emotional and psychological. Being torn between the dark and the light and actually being tempted to the light for once, which we've never really seen a bad character be tempted towards the light side. We've seen a good character be tempted towards the dark side a couple of times, but we've never seen a bad character that was anything other than absolute evil.
Right.
Darth Maul, Sidious, Count Dooku, we didn't see anything redeeming really in any of these guys.
Just wonder what happened to him, that he, basically betrayed his family by going to the dark side, and that he betrayed his uncle, his teacher, to go to the dark side. What happened in his childhood that made him just feel just want to disconnect so much? I mean, I'd like to think there was a lot of love there. Unlike Anakin,
think about the first movie, in A New Hope. We don't really know a lot about any of those people's backstories. It's not until the sequels where they really flesh everything out. And you're like, oh, that's why Luke, blah 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 blah. So I'm assuming we'll get a lot more of that on behalf of Rey and Rey and Kylo Ren, since they do seem to be the two opposing figures of this trilogy going forward.
So who do we think Finn is related to?
I don't know if he's going to be related to anybody. I heard rumors that he would be related to Lando. But honestly, I almost sort of hope that he's not, because I mean, each of these trilogies has like one African-American male in it. It's like, would we really need to have him be related to one of the other two, either Mace Windu or Lando Calrissian? And it's like, I don't know.
Well, I think that was the initial theory because he had, in the trailer, had the lightsaber, and it's like, oh,
well, that would be more Mace Windu than Lando.
Yeah, he knows the ways of the Force. But now that he was just a stormtrooper guy, then he could just be a stormtrooper guy. Plus, he even said, I just got my name. Like, I just became
FN
2187.
Was it 2187?
Yeah, nobody really had asked him. He just, that became who he was. So.
Yeah, he was taken from his family when he was a kid and trained by the First Order. Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to, I mean, we don't really need to know everybody's backstory to this extent, but I mean, Rey and Kylo Ren, I'm sure we'll get lots more about that going forward in the next movie. So do we want to talk a little bit about all the parallels between this one and Episode 4?
Sure.
And how it's a little excessive? So first of all, we come into the movie and you meet the bad guy who's wearing a mask and has a has a deep voice that sounds like it's exaggerated by some kind of mechanical alterations. Coming in and killing a bunch of people and taking a hostage. Meanwhile, that hostage put some vital information into a droid who's like runs away with it onto a desert planet and runs into...
Well, they were already on the desert planet.
I know, whatever. Well, instead of sending him from space and landing on a desert planet.
Right.
Okay, whatever. These are broad strokes, obviously. And then finding a person who has an untapped ability to harness the Force, who ends up getting swept up in a larger adventure involving Han Solo and Leia and this rebellion against the government. And there was a lot of that. Like, the story is essentially Episode 4. It's a little bit different. To the point that they're even attacking Starkiller Base, which is a different shaped Death Star, basically, that blows up planets. I mean, I could have done without Starkiller Base. And when that whole attack was going on, I didn't really give a shit about that. I was way more invested in Han and Kylo Ren and Rey and all the like personal family drama happening between those characters, rather than, oh, we gotta shoot this thing and blow it up again before this is the third time we've seen that. I don't know. What are your reaction? What are your thoughts about all the parallels to the original film? I mean, to the point where we even had a mentor to one of our new characters get slain right in front of them. I mean, that whole Kylo Ren killing Han Solo on the bridge, which is a clear homage to Empire Strikes Back, where he's like, you and me can, just overthrow the Emperor and rule the galaxy as father and son. Right on which again happened like on a catwalk.
But Kylo Ren didn't say that to Han Solo.
I'm not saying that. He said the exact
same
words.
But he said it to Rey. So that's definitely a parallel.
Well, I mean, all the bad guys do that.
He's like, you're knowledge about the Force. You
need a teacher. I can train you.
And so that is definitely a parallel, just a
different. But the catwalk, I mean, it's a similar setting to Empire Strikes Back.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, he kills Han Solo, who was positioning himself to be sort of a father figure to Rey, right in front of Rey as she's watching, almost going no, just like that part where Ben Kenobi gets killed by Vader in that lightsaber battle in the original film. There was a lot of that, to the point where it was sort of becoming easy for me to predict where this was going to go. Like, I'll say this and then this and then this. Yeah, okay, I thought so.
And how would the screenwriter even not think that people are going to jump to those conclusions? If you're such a fanatic Star Wars fan, then you clearly have seen the movies thousands of times over.
Right.
So I'd like to think that it was more of an homage compared to lazy screenwriting.
Yeah, no, they were trying to capture the nostalgia and the spirit of the original films. And I mean, it's not like it was an exact remake, but there were enough moments that seemed almost directly lifted out of the original film for me to knock the film a little bit just because of that. However, I mean, the story they set it up for in episode 8 with Rian Johnson writing and directing, that's positioned to probably be the best to probably be even better than this movie, because now you don't have to be like, here's this girl, here's this stormtrooper guy who's not a stormtrooper anymore, here's this other scary black guy in black, scary black, I almost said scary black guy. I mean, not Finn, I'm talking about Kylo Ren. Scary guy wearing all black with a red lightsaber. Here's Luke and Leia. You know who they are. This is what happened. This is their motivation. Let's go. And I think in the next movie they can basically pick it up from there, and really really take off and bring a lot more imagination and innovation to the story that we didn't get a chance to see in this one, because it was in a lot of ways sort of a reintroduction.
Right, exactly. It was like an origin story.
Sort of. Plus,
right.
I mean, George Lucas, granted he wasn't involved in this movie, but he said with the two trilogies, there is a lot of parallels and a lot of moments and story beats that happen again slightly differently to different characters or whatever, but they kind of callbacks.
Like history repeating itself.
Like history repeating itself, and also like he's referred to the saga as sort of poetry or sort of music and how it comes around, and there's certain notes or refrains that are repeated, throughout the full piece, and there was a lot of that here. So it's just, for me, it went slightly over the line of being of falling into that, and almost to the point of like another Death Star, come on, really? Let's do something
I like
else.
Starkiller Base. That's a cool name.
Well, actually, that's funny, because Starkiller, they named it that because in the original version of Episode 4, the main character was named Luke Starkiller.
Oh, yeah, right.
Was that in the trivia, too?
It was. And wasn't that actually a Flash Gordon name?
Oh, I don't know. Flash Gordon was a big inspiration for the original film.
I've heard that.
Yeah. The original Flash Gordon's from like the 40s and 50s, the ones that Lucas grew up with, not the Flash, Savior of the Universe, that movie in 1980. That's a totally separate thing.
Oh, yeah, right. Well,
because you remember in Ted, Sam Jones, the blonde guy that played Flash Gordon on the show, on that movie back in the 80s. It's totally separate. That was the 1980 reboot of Flash Gordon from like the 40s or whatever. I think the next film could be a lot better, and I'm just really excited to see what happens next for these characters. But as for this one, it did an excellent job of capturing the spirit of the original films, and referencing the backstory of the returning characters enough that it plays into the current events of the story, but not really being like, oh, so Leia, give me your whole history. It's like, I don't have to know. They were together, then I had a kid, they're not together, now she's running things again. That's all I need to know. They both fell back into the things they know. They do enough of that without sort of like hand-feeding you exposition, whereas the prequels were like, okay, we're going to tell you how the politics of Naboo work. And let's talk about the Senate hearing, and let's tell about nobody gives a shit. Focus on the story. You go to Star Wars to get that rush of enthusiasm, that excitement, that connection to when you've seen these movies in the past, to feeling like a kid again, and then like that sense of adventure where you're gonna walk out and buy a lightsaber and be like, I can't wait to buy a lightsaber toy for me and my kids so we could play lightsaber fights in the backyard. And I'm like, oh, this time I'm Kylo Ren and you be Rey, that kind of thing. Or Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, whatever film you're referencing. And that's what these movies are about. They're mythological tales that are meant to be taken from one generation and passed down to the next. So it makes sense that each trilogy of films would focus on that next generation and create a new story for a new generation of characters and audience members to be inspired by.
Right, and I think that we're definitely also in a time of films that are doing getting new generations.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a good point. Look at Creed, which is basically bringing back Sylvester Stallone as Rocky and introducing, all right, this other new character was the child of this other character that Rocky was close to. So now he's the mentor figure. He's the Harrison Ford, of the Force in the Force Awakens.
Well, there's that, and then there's also going back in time where you have X-Men Apocalypse, or really starting with X-Men Days of Future Past,
right,
where it's the older generation that's now coming in as a new generation of X-Men.
Right.
So we're going to be seeing for X-Men Apocalypse, X-Men in the 80s. So now the characters that we've known in modern time, they will be disappearing pretty much probably for good. And so there's that too, just in reverse. And I'm sure there are other movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
But I mean, there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is for technically a new generation of the same turtles.
No, but that's a straight up reboot. I mean, there's a difference between like taking a franchise and like I don't know who coined this. I wish I could I made a mental note of that. But the legacy sequel, where it's like it's a sequel, but it's marking a new era of that story within that same universe as the previous stories. Because, I mean, nobody wants to see a remake, like a straight-up remake of the original Star Wars. They can remake elements of it and bring the original characters back and introduce new ones to sort of like a passing of the torch film. And that's
or lightsaber.
And that too. Well, I mean, and this was literally a passing of the lightsaber, actually. I mean, and that's essentially what this film is.
Well, then there's also films that, like Independence Day 2. That's not a reboot. That is a sequel that's going to have it's going to have the old generation and a new generation. Right. So there's probably going to be a new president who might be the son of the old president.
I think it's Cela Ward. I think she's playing the president. I think she's in the trailer. That's what I've read.
Oh, so we'll have a lady. One? I forgot.
No, we're not. Well, so we'll have a lady president in Mission Impossible. I'm thinking of something else. I've just bought Mission Impossible Rogue Nation on Blu-ray, so I'm like, Mission Impossible, we need to pop that in. So yeah, I think that's interesting too, because they're bringing back some of those original characters, the older ones, but then also like there's new actors playing Bill Pullman's daughter and Will Smith's son. So they'll probably be the main characters in that franchise.
It's too bad it's not going to be his daughter from the actual movie, because at this point,
Mae Whitman.
Yeah.
It should have just been Mae Whitman.
Yeah, but it's so cool because she's
still
was
in
the same.
Stuff.
She was.
I know
the
that
movie was only
me.
20 years ago, and she was probably only about 8 years old. She could have been in the business, or maybe she didn't want to be in it. Too.
Yeah, maybe they didn't ask her because they were like, we need somebody different. And I'm like, well, that's kind of shitty to do, but okay. Now we're talking about Independence Day,
right?
But no, I mean the goal for J.J. Abrams in this film was to honor the original trilogy and give it a fresh start, and I feel like he did exactly that. Like I'm super excited, like to the point that I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm more excited to see what the future has in store for Rey. Like fuck Luke Skywalker, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm excited to see what happens with him. But I'm really like, this girl has the actress and the character have just are just so compelling to watch. Every step of the way, all the moments and I loved all the moments that the movie went out of its way to be like, yes, she's not a damsel in distress. When he Finn's like grabbing her hand and running with her, and she's like, stop grabbing my hand. I know how to run without holding her hand. That kind of thing. Or like where she's being like jumped by some people in the market or whatever because she's trying to protect BB-8 from getting stolen. And Finn's like, shit, I need to go help that girl. And he's like, gets up and about to run over there, and then she kicks everybody's ass. He's like, all right, never mind. Okay. Yeah. All that was great, that they established that she is self-sufficient. She doesn't need somebody to save her. And, she's the one that does the saving. And I thought that was wonderful, especially for a franchise that has been woefully underwhelmed as far as its female and, minority presence throughout. I mean, it's just basically white guys in all the Star Wars movies, in every role.
What about that quote that Kathleen Kennedy just said recently?
Which one?
Was that Kathleen Kennedy with the Neo and the...
No, that was I think that was Joanna Robinson, who is a film critic and entertainment journalist. Just saying how people are being sexist about Rey. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think she was great, and I'm really excited to see more of her. So, what are your, I guess, closing thoughts on this film? Like, I did a lot of closing thoughts. So what are your closing thoughts on this film? And, what do you... I'm going to make you come and see the next one with me. Probably even Rogue One, but at least episode 8. What are your thoughts, and what do you want to see happen next?
I want to know the
story.
You
want answers to your question.
I want to answer my question. I want to know who is Rey related to? Which Skywalker? I know she's a Skywalker. You can't deceive me.
I mean, it could be. It would be slightly more dramatic if it was brother and sister fighting. But I mean, cousins fighting still gets the same point across.
Right. Maybe after Kylo Ren went all bad, like, oh man, I don't want to. Han and Leia, like, oh man, I don't have another kid. Yeah, the other one might turn out bad too.
Well, in the extended universe, they had 3 kids. One of them, the oldest one was a boy, went to the dark side. The younger one was a girl, and she became a Jedi. And then the third one, died tragically as a little boy or something. I don't know the circumstances because I haven't read a lot of those novels.
But it's possible they're not doing things from the comic book.
No, they're not. I mean, these are novels, not comic books. But, But I mean, I'm sure they had comic books with those characters too. Yeah, no, I know they're not, but that doesn't mean that they can't draw inspiration from that. I mean,
Right.
Captain America: Civil War is coming out next year. Is that exactly like the Civil War comic book? No, but are they going to take elements of it? Yeah, of course. That's
why break the grain? You know?
Why fix what's not broken?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to adapt it 100%, but you can take. I mean, you don't think that they borrowed the idea of, okay, Han and Leia have a kid who becomes a Jedi, who becomes a, starts turns to the dark side. You don't think they borrowed that from the?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. So they're taking bits and pieces of it, and kind of doing their own version of it, which I think is great, because if they acknowledge all of that as canon, they don't have any stories to tell.
Right.
Everything's been covered. We know what happens to all of them way into the future. And there's no surprises. Then we won't have these questions. We'll be like, I know it's in this book. I don't need to know. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they don't get to build the story as they go along. I'm sure novels and stuff will come out between now and episode 8, filling in some of these gaps and like little hints about certain things. But that will be up to them to divulge in their own time. Lucasfilm, I'm saying. To build towards that other film, not just having it already in the world randomly and just be like, all right, well, let's write a script based on this,
Right, exactly. Well, I hope that in the next film, episode 8, I hope that Finn and Rey get together. I think that they'd be really cute love story, and
I think it's good. I didn't interrupt.
I think it'd be nice to have them come together, and clearly he's a hero type, he's a leader, and she's a leader too, and it's basically like Han and Leia all over again, but just in, a different way.
I'm glad that they didn't do that in this movie, though, because I hate movies that force like a love story and they're like, oh, they just met, but now they're in love. I'm like, And the original trilogy also did a good job with that, where they're Han and Leia had chemistry in A New Hope, and you could tell that he was sort of attracted to her. It was like, great girl. I don't know if I want to. What does he say?
Kiss her or shoot her?
Kiss her or something. Yeah, something like that. And clearly Luke was already into her, not knowing it's his sister.
Weren't you wondering where I was or what I'm doing? She's like, no.
Yeah. All of that stuff. And they built towards that, where in Empire Strikes Back, it was sometime later story-wise, and that chemistry just felt more natural. Like, okay, these two are way more familiar with each other than they were in the first movie, but still nothing's happened. So you still got to see that moment where they realize that they have feelings for each other, and it is a mutual thing. And then you get that great, I love you. I know that thing,
right?
Which is amazing.
Okay, what about the prequels? That was a little forced.
Well, it was forced because we knew that these two had to have sex and have kids, because otherwise we don't have.
Yeah, and I still don't understand what she saw in him.
Yeah,
I don't see how they got together.
George Lucas did not do a very good job with that. I mean, granted, I don't love the prequels. Okay, I do love the prequels, but I don't think they're great movies, except for maybe Revenge of the Sith. I might defend. But there are a lot of things in all three of them to like. There are a lot of the visuals sometimes are really strong. The battle scenes are extremely well choreographed. There are actually funny moments or strong performances, that kind of thing. But that whole love story with the two of them, which is so key to this plot of that trilogy, leading to the tragic end for, I guess, both of them, was so heavy-handed and horribly written. I mean, I wish that I could just wish away my feelings. What the fuck? Who talks like that?
He does.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. He just was whiny. And I'm just like, what does she see in him? I would even ask this when we're watching the film. Like, what does she see in him?
And then I had to sit next to him and put my hands in the air and be like, I don't know.
But the thing is, you're talking about visually beautiful. I mean, that
part of it, some of it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of it was CGI. And that's a great thing about this movie was that it wasn't really CGI at all. And the places that they went to, the planets, looked like places you would actually see on planet Earth. It was really... I mean, I get it. I get that the prequels, took you to a far away land.
But they look like video games. You even said it, and many people have said it. That's one of the biggest criticisms around it. Besides the shitty writing of the romance in the prequels, the fact that everything is so CG to the point that you're like, it just looks like two people standing and playing a virtual reality game. No, I don't understand.
Right.
And it was so over the top, where they're swinging on the freaking ropes while they're hitting lightsabers with lava everywhere. It's like, can't you just make it about this? Like, look at the effectiveness of that lightsaber battle versus the passion in the Rey versus Kylo Ren thing. That was like edge of your seat shit right there. And it was just two people with lightsabers, one of which who had I don't know how to use this, but I guess it's like this, fighting in the snow. It was two people fighting. It was a personal conflict. Not, I mean, so was the Obi-Wan Anakin thing, but it was just like them, like they were dancing instead of like fighting. They didn't seem like they were mad at each other. They just seemed like they're like doing some kind of weird Cirque du Soleil routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm glad that the movies have balanced CG with practical effects. And some people have said that Supreme Leader Snoke and Maz Kanata did kind of stick out like a sore thumb a little bit because those were the motion capture characters. I did sort of feel that a little bit too. Maz Kanata's especially because, I mean, you see her walking around where there's actors, there's puppets, there's, a lot of makeup and different effects happening in that scene, in her sequences. And she did look very cartoony comparatively.
Right.
But I was still really interested in her character, and I hope that Lupita Nyong'o comes back because I didn't think she was interesting, and I want to know more about where she comes from, and the fact that we now have a character other than Yoda who's been around forever, and she's like, yeah, I've seen this shit before. Sith, Empire, First Order, it's all the same bullshit.
Right.
And that she's like us, and she's like, yeah. This is all cyclical. I've seen it several times because we're all like, yeah, so have we. We watched the other stuff.
Right, exactly. We haven't even been alive 1,000 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But also with the motion capture, that's also very different than the prequels. So we were even talking about that earlier. That motion capture was not being used as much in the back in the early 2000s.
Jar Jar Binks was not motion capture. Jar Jar Binks was
CGI.
Ahmed Best, the actor who did the voice. He had like a Jar Jar like hat on or something because Jar Jar's taller than a normal man. He's supposed to be like more like 6-7 feet tall. And then he was in the scene walking around with them doing the voices, but they didn't have the little sensors on his face. They didn't use anything to capture his performance. That was all the animators. Which is why Jar Jar Binks looks like one of those zombie Polar Express kids most of the time. He's like, Misa called Jar Jar Binks.
Right.
He's like, you humble servant.
Yeah, so even though they did use CGI in this one, it seems like it was more motion capture based, which is, a technology that's being more widespread. And also, in the original films, they didn't have CGI at all. It really was just practical effects and miniatures.
So a little bit of stop motion, but
but they had to make it feel similar to that.
Yeah, and they did a great job with that. Do we think a couple more questions, then we'll wrap it up because we're reaching an hour. Do we think any other original trilogy cast members or anybody else from the previous 6 films? Do you think we're going to see any other familiar faces other than, I guess, now Luke and Leia?
Luke and Leia, Rey.
No, not from this movie.
Oh,
from the original 6 films. Do you think we're going to have anybody else show up? Because remember, some people can become one with the Force.
I don't know.
Presence is felt enough, as is, that we don't need him to like show up and be like. We don't need Hayden Christensen to pop up and be like, "Hey, dude."
Plus, he was redeemed.
Yeah, or him to show up and be like, "Hey, it's cool. I'm good now." Which that's going to be, and we talked about that a little bit in the last podcast. That's going to be a nice big twist when, because there's going to be a moment in either episode 8 or episode 9 where Luke or Rey, somebody tells Kylo Ren, it's like, listen, this guy that you've been following, he actually went towards the light when all was said and done, and he helped destroy the Emperor. So you're trying to finish what he started. He decided he didn't want to do that in the first place. So now you're going based off false information.
Right.
Which is an interesting thing, because us as the audience, we know what was going on in Darth Vader's head more now because we saw Return of the Jedi. And Kylo Ren is living off of this legend of like the Dark Lord of the Sith and all powerful, and I need to live up to my grandfather and all that crap. And that's an interesting place to be. I have heard a lot of rumors that Lando might come back, and I think now that Han Solo is dead, I think that will be a good opportunity for him to be like to maybe come to help Leia out, become part of the Resistance, or at least give his feedback on grieving for his friend's death, that kind of thing. And if Finn happens to be connected to him, then there you go. You got that. That'll tie in nicely. Actually, I read about this last night. During that scene where she has her vision, you can hear a voice going, "Rey, these are your first steps," or something. And that was actually a snippet of Alec Guinness's voice as Obi-Wan, and then they actually had Ewan McGregor record a line of dialogue.
Oh wow! So he might
to play Obi-Wan. And there have been rumors,
because if he's a Force ghost.
Apparently
if
Hayden Christensen can be the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi, why can't Obi-Wan take his younger form? I mean, we don't have Alec Guinness with us anymore, and Ewan McGregor was one of those strong performances in the prequels that I think elevated that material ridiculously, especially in Episode 3. So it would be interesting to see Ewan McGregor show up either as a Force Ghost or in a flashback or a vision or something. There's also been rumors that at some point they could do an Obi-Wan standalone movie as one of the in between episodes, and I would love to see that. I thought he was great. And we have 20 years of unexplored terrain where he drops Luke off with Owen and Beru and then goes to hide in the desert and then shows up again 20. We don't know. He could have left Tatooine, gone on some other mission, kicked some ass, and be like, all right, back to my post.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a lot of
what about Yoda? Can Yoda come back as a Force Ghost?
I think so. Frank Oz is still around. He could record the voice. And a little bit of Yoda's dialogue, I guess, was played in that scene too. That happened a lot really fast. And seeing it on the big IMAX, I think I was sensory overload a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they cut back and forth. Among that vision was that scene of Luke's hand on R2 and all of that. There was a lot going on. So when I rewatch it now, I can really focus in on enjoying, taking in John Williams' score, as well as little details like the Daniel Craig cameo and some of the other character reprisals there. So overall, very excited. Definitely going to be in my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Can't wait for more. I'm sure I'll be talking about Star Wars Rogue One and Episode 8 on the podcast going forward as more news comes out. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys thought about Star Wars The Force Awakens. Send me a tweet at Crooked Table.
And you can send me a tweet too at the Volky LLC. And I usually actually tweet at Crooked Table's stuff on Twitter as well. So you'll see that.
Go. Read our articles at crookedtable.com. Like us on Facebook. I'm not sure when we're going to do the next episode of this. The Hateful Eight does come out in actually less than a week now. So I'm definitely going to see that. So hopefully I can either wrangle Kai or Freddie in here, or I could just do a solo show like I solo. It's a little bit of Star Wars humor. Solo show, but I'm going to try and get something up every week to 10 days. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I need to get a little more regularity with these episodes because I have a blast doing them, and it's always, it's fun to get the conversation started with you guys. So I guess that's it for this episode of the Crooked Table. If you haven't listened to our part 1 of our Star Wars episode, please go ahead and download that off of iTunes, and please, if you enjoy what you're hearing, give us some reviews. So in the meantime, may the Force be with you, and we'll see you guys soon.
Happy holidays.
Roll credits.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.